All of your local and state news in one place. Tune into The District on WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station. Welcome to the latest edition of The District. It is the last one of the semester, actually.
It's flown by.
Yeah.
It's crazy because, this is a really cool idea you came up with for WHIP. We talked at great length on air about issues pertaining to the national scale and some here at Temple. But for this specifically just to be on issues state-centric, Philadelphia-centric, Temple-centric, has been really fun. And you've done a great job spearheading this. So again, Taylor, thank you for asking me to hop on. But the cool thing is, even though it's the last one, I love the topics you picked out today because all of them we could kind of go on and on about them. But anyway, we'll get started now, though.
Please don't inflate my ego. Very first thing this week actually started. Universities becoming sanctuary campuses. UPenn was the first one to start this trend. Essentially, an email went out from the president that stated that they're not allowing any kind of immigration officials to come in without a warrant, and they're not going to willingly give information if they have any undocumented students to these officials without a warrant or any kind of official legal process. This has come after a petition that was signed by hundreds of faculty and students, and what's notable about UPenn is that Donald Trump, that is his
alma mater.
That's his alma mater, and his school definitely has completely different views. They support DACA, which is the
Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals.
Thank you. Which essentially states that any undocumented immigrant that came while they were a minor, they're pretty much exempt from being deported, essentially. So that was that would happen maybe Sunday, and then 2 days later, Swarthmore, another Pennsylvania college, private school, also declared itself a sanctuary campus. They did everything that UPenn did, but in addition, they essentially said that they weren't even checking for job eligibility to make sure that you're U.S. eligible. They're not even checking for that. If you're a student, they immediately will think that you're eligible for work studies, such things like that. And they do admit undocumented immigrants, and they have in the past. And they also support DACA. Actually, that's not that uncommon since over 400 colleges nationwide support DACA. So
yeah, the story I think we have to talk about is that, so we see two universities in this specific area, but both are not public universities. And just this past week, the Temple News put out an article, I believe it was from Joe Brandt, who is the editor, I believe. We wanted to have him on Beyond the Lead yesterday. Unfortunately, we couldn't get our times to work out. But he put an op-ed essentially saying that it's time for Temple to become a sanctuary campus. And, we're in the city of Philadelphia where Democrats far outnumber Republicans. It's a sanctuary city. So, again, you would think that many of the institutions in Philadelphia would essentially fall in line or kind of follow suit with Mayor Jim Kenney. But it's interesting because Temple is yet to do so. And, again, it's a rather diverse, liberal campus. I think many would agree.
Yes,
not even
absolutely.
putting bias into it. But one can tell when you go to a school like Temple, it's rather liberal, rather diverse, and you would think most students would be on board, you would think, with this notion. But the thing is, since it's a public university,
exactly,
how would Temple go about this, and will they? I'm very fascinated to see if they're going to address this, because, again, we've already seen two schools in the area now do it. It usually takes one to start a ripple effect. Mm-hmm. I wonder if this was the first domino to fall, and I wonder if other schools, and how many more will follow suit.
Well, I wonder if Temple even really cares necessarily about claiming to be a sanctuary campus because it is a sanctuary city. So they probably don't even think it's that big of a deal. They are a public institution. They do get public funding. And although Philadelphia is very liberal, the entire state of Pennsylvania is not. It's actually very moderate. You actually don't know the majority of people's views on sanctuary campuses or sanctuary cities or anything that pretty much benefits undocumented immigrants. So I understand why Temple probably is shying away from this just because of a funding issue, but I honestly don't think that if there were undocumented immigrants, which, I mean, to be honest, how would anyone really know unless you verified that? I highly doubt Temple, because it's so liberal, would take action against that.
Yeah, I don't think they would either, but I'm just curious to see if Temple's going to take that extra step and actually go out there and maybe put funding on the line like you mentioned, Taylor. Again, this is purely speculation if Temple will choose to follow suit with Penn and Swarthmore, but it would be putting themselves kind of on the line monetary. And we know that, when it comes to college affordability, it's a topic of conversation in college funding here. We talk about it so often. And the money allocated from the state for, these universities, that you want to make sure you're getting the proper funding, or else you will probably lose enrollment, or people will be less likely to go to your school. So I'm curious to see what Temple's motive will be in the near future. And again, Temple News has talked about this. Again, now here we are talking about it on the district. Now people here, we're at Temple, and we're talking about this issue. We're not saying whether they should do it or not, but we're curious. Will they take that extra step and actually go out and become a sanctuary campus? Will they at least comment on Penn and Swarthmore's?
But you also have to understand, like, UPenn and Swarthmore, I mean, UPenn's an Ivy League. They have no problems with funding. They have so much alumni that donate every single year.
Oh, man. More than we can imagine.
Their monetary needs, like, they're fine, okay? And Swarthmore, although it is not an Ivy League school, it's a hard school to get into. It's a small liberal arts school, but it's not easy to get into. Also, a lot of alumni that donates. Monetary things they're not really worried about. So these presidents can go out and say certain things and have certain political views and support certain entities and be very political because they can afford to do so. But what is interesting is that, like, not all private schools are involved with this. Like California State universities, all of them, like Davis, Berkeley, all of them support DACA. Not necessarily a sanctuary campus, but they at least support it. But again, California is a pretty liberal state.
Yeah.
So
California, like we talked about Philadelphia, where it is a liberal city, the rest of the state not so much, but California, I think, as a whole is pretty liberal. But that was something we talked about at Temple. We're going to continue to monitor, and although we're going to have a hiatus that we won't be broadcasting for quite some time, and for another month and a half, whatever exactly it is, how long our break is, but I wonder at that point in time, will it get brought up by then? I wonder if there's a timeline that President Englert think that is this something he wants to address, or is it something maybe he'll let it play out, and then if someone asks him, maybe he'll be forced to, acknowledge the issue.
I mean, he's a temporary president. Maybe he'll just wait it out till the next person comes in.
And that's a very good point. He's, in a sense where he's maybe, you don't want to say he's a placeholder, but you know what I mean. Like, he may not be the long-term.
You're allowed to say he's a placeholder. I think it's appropriate in this scenario.
Yeah, but anyway, that's Temple related, and actually that just relates to the city of Philadelphia as a whole too, because again, it is a sanctuary city. And now, coming back to the city of Philadelphia, we've seen a rise in vandalism since Trump's election, whether it's pro-Trump graffiti, anti-Trump graffiti. People on both sides have taken their opinions and used it, getting a spray can and going to buildings and roads, whatever.
It was a very emotional campaign, to say the least.
And I think no matter who was going to win, we were going to see people react in that fashion, and that wasn't surprising. But you hate to stereotype and generalize, but you typically don't expect a city attorney to be involved with this. Taylor, you have the story with this one.
Wow. Duncan Lloyd, apparently, one night he went with a friend. They actually have never disclosed the friend's name. And they went to Germantown Avenue and decided to say some colorful language about Trump on the side of a building. Although the video itself does not show Lloyd doing the spray painting. It is seen he is videotaping his friend as he is doing the spray paint of very vulgar language. And they are seen going and coming, and it's unmistakable. He is identified. Like, this is a city attorney, and he's, wow. Did he really not think there was cameras?
Yeah, so on CNN show, Michael Smerconish's program, he's from the Philadelphia area. He broadcasts, I believe, out of Philadelphia for his shows as well. So he's involved with this, and as a matter of fact, on his weekly show, he had big names, outside the Philadelphia area each show, because it's a national broadcast. So like Stephen A. Smith talk about Colin Kaepernick. So you have all these issues at the national level, and then he brings on Joe DeFelice, who is the chairman of the Philadelphia Republican Party from Northeast Philadelphia, and Duncan Lloyd's attorney as well, who's speaking on Lloyd's behalf. And they were kind of going at it about the issue. They did show the video, Taylor, and I couldn't help but think it's a bad look for him, considering it's an attorney who's dressed in nice clothing. Again, seriously, you look at...
No, he is.
He's got, like, what would you even describe? It's not a regular sweater. It's like a really nice...
Like a polo? No, not even a pullover. I don't even know.
Really nice clothing, and he's holding, like, this glass of wine, videotaping someone vandalizing a side of a building. And the two took shots at each other, DeFelice saying the Democratic Party, this is, in a nutshell, that this is their issue right now, that you have people in nice suits drinking wine, vandalizing the city, saying that city as a whole is really, the Democratic Party as a whole doesn't really represent Philadelphia anymore. It's only, you have wealthy people who are vandalizing buildings. That's what the party's become. And of course, Lloyd's attorney saying, look, you can't confirm anything with it. although Lloyd was a bystander and videotaped it, but there's no proof of him actually doing anything.
Yeah.
So, and his attorney's comparison was that he was just a bystander. For example, he compared it to like a bar fight, where he said, if you're at a bar and you see someone fighting, you pull your phone out, does that mean you're an accessory to that? That was his defense. I'm just saying, but
I don't think this applies, because he was definitely a friend. Like, you could tell, like, they were definitely familiar with each other. He was laughing. He was clearly drinking at the time. It was late at night. I'm just really surprised that he wasn't at least concerned about his whereabouts at all. I mean, you are an official. Why did you think this was okay? I mean, look, regardless of political affiliation, vandalism is not approved by anyone.
No.
It's really not. And, like, yes, it's funny, but at the same time, like, come on, you can't be doing this.
No, bad luck for Duncan Lloyd. Do I think he gets brought up on anything? No.
No.
And that's just, again, a personal opinion, because I think they're not going to have enough evidence to say that he had an active hand, that just because he was a bystander walking by, even with his glass of wine videotaping it, there's no proof that he was actually the perpetrator or he had a role in the graffiti. But hey, since we talked about Temple, you have here in the notes, Duncan Lloyd is a Temple alum.
Yep, he's the Beasley School of Law is how he got his law degree. Yeah. So, Temple made, I guess.
I guess, question mark. Mayor Kenney has addressed the situation, calling the incident a, quote, dumb mistake, to say the least. But yeah, the vandalism was on Germantown Ave and Chestnut Hill, and the estimated damage is anywhere between $3,000 and $10,000. That's a lot. That's a lot. Again, when you first read that, it catches your eye, because when you think of vandalism, you hate to say petty crimes, but you just see, you think it's somewhat minor. Not that you wouldn't want anyone to go up to your business or
and
house
do it,
but you don't think of it as as costly as that is.
No, I figured you just needed paint just to paint it over, but apparently not. I mean, okay. There's no police action, never has been. I doubt it'll ever get to that point. And he does have his job, and I think he's going to keep it. Like, no one has been threatening to fire him, although obviously the Philly GOP definitely wants him to step down.
Yeah.
But there really is no threat to his job as of right now.
Yeah, that's I think we're in agreement there, that I don't think anything's going to happen to him. But for all those, and for you, Taylor, look at that exchange between his attorney, Duncan Lloyd's attorney, as well as Joe DeFelice's exchange on CNN's Michael Smirkani's show. It's online. I tweeted out the video a couple of days ago, and for personal reasons as well, they're talking about the attire that he was wearing. So he was dressed in, rather nice clothing.
Yeah, he was a professional, definitely.
Oh, yeah, and he's walking. It's not like he's just walking, with a beer can. It's like he's got a glass of wine as he's holding it in the street with his rather nice clothing in Chestnut Hill, rather affluent area. And again, DeFelice was saying this is the Democratic Party now. It's only representing like Vine Street to the main line, that their people are now the wealthy. And it was just a side note that both of these gentlemen are from Northeast Philadelphia, DeFelice and Duncan Lloyd's attorney, and he said that that's just what they wear out in Chestnut Hill. He's like, where we came from in my area, in this part of my city, he said we used to wear army jackets, and they would call them Parkwood tuxedos. That's the neighborhood I'm from. So
amazing.
A little different there with that. So my neighbor getting a shout out on CNN, pretty funny there, but that was an interesting exchange and a very bizarre story. Hopefully we see the vandalism decrease, because no matter who wins, you just really shouldn't act like that.
No, absolutely not. And I actually think that, the Trump, at least the initial emotional thing has died down. It'll probably come back up when inauguration comes around.
Oh, yeah. We're only a month away.
It's died down considerably.
Yeah, but again, it's only a matter of time. Till January 20th, I think we're going to see more protests and marches down Broad Street. And you have the right to do so, because that's a, freedom of...
It's very much American to protest, actually.
No. They're absolutely allowed to, as long as nothing is damaged. Then by all means, and I think we're going to see more before Inauguration Day. But the third story of the show is something that me and you saw tweeted out earlier today. The story picked up by the Philadelphia Inquirer, and in a city like Philadelphia, you would think this already would not have been legal.
Yeah, I'm surprised that this was even a conversation, quite frankly.
Yeah, but so Philadelphia. To consider banning controversial conversion therapy.
Okay, for anyone who doesn't know, conversion therapy usually encompasses a young person who is LGBT, typically a minor, who was sent to some kind of facility to change their sexual orientation from anything under the LGBTQ umbrella too straight. This has been proven to be not effective over and over again through multiple studies. I mean, homosexuality has already been proven not to be a mental disorder years ago, but people still practice this. People who, quite frankly, are discriminatory towards the community. And it's quite surprising that Philadelphia is even thinking about this just because it's such a liberal city. I mean, we have a section called the Gayborhood.
I think it's one of the bigger gayborhoods in the country, if I'm not mistaken.
It is, actually.
The community as a whole is rather strong in Philadelphia. And the fact that we both saw this on our Twitter timelines today took me aback because I was thinking to myself, I'm surprised this was still legal in the city of Philadelphia. I mean, it's a sanctuary city, but yet conversion therapy is still legal. Councilman Mark Squilla introduced the legislation today, Thursday, December 8th. And I had the opportunity to talk to Councilman Squilla about a week or two ago for a class of mine. And obviously it wasn't about this topic, but I'd love to talk to him again about this because this is something where, again, we don't know if anyone at all is practicing this conversion therapy in the city because we really
don't. And it's something that I highly doubt would be advertised.
Great. Yeah, I can't imagine us, flipping through the paper or going online seeing an open advertisement about conversion therapy again. Like you mentioned, this is typically used for those under 18 years old.
I want to really know what made him come up with this. I mean, as far as I know, the problem is non-existent, at least in Philadelphia. And I wonder if it actually has something to do with VP Mike Pence.
And that's a good point because since Mike Pence was selected to be Trump's running mate, that was certainly a move to appease the further right because Pence is, in all sense of the word, a real conservative, Christian, far-right conservative. He is not, like
There's nothing moderate about him.
like Trump's message was not far-right. There were certain issues that he had that were much more far-right, but the thing is, the reality of the matter is Trump isn't your textbook conservative, where Pence was really by the party line. And actually on the religious, he pretty much affiliates himself with the religious right. And we know Pence's stance
on marriage equality or really the LGBT community at large.
And specifically the legislation that got him on the national scale was RFRA, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, where businesses had the opportunity to decline the service of gays, whether they were going in based on sexual orientation. And since then, Pence's approval rating before that was hovering around 60% according to James Briggs of the Indianapolis Star, who we had on the program back in July. And he said after he signed that legislation, the business community as a whole just really lashed out on him too. People who actually sided with Republicans said this was hurting their businesses. And then his approval rating went down to low 40s. And like you mentioned, since Trump picked Pence, maybe that could have been a reason that spurred this legislation. Because quite frankly, this is something that me and you, and I think many people our age, don't think this is a hot, burning issue. But now since it's being brought up, you wonder if it's even being practiced here and the motive of it, like you mentioned, maybe it is a direct retaliation of Trump picking Mike Pence.
I mean, it is a stereotype to assume that all of this kind of conversion therapy is usually in middle America. That is a stereotype. Maybe that is not the case. As much as we know that they could be in our backyard, we don't know that.
Heck, it could be in some of the Philly suburbs for all we know.
I mean, you have to remember, although Philadelphia itself, you cannot job discrimination against gays. Pennsylvania, you can. The state, you can. You think that certain legislation should be in place, and sometimes it's just not, and this could be a prime example of that.
So again, that's for Philadelphia to consider this, considering the ban of conversion therapy. And also Pittsburgh is considering similar legislation. So the two biggest cities in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania considering this legislation.
I think it'll pass with flying colors.
I can imagine there even being a fight against this, quite frankly.
I'm surprised this is a conversation.
But it's still worth talking about because this is one of those unique topics. So the fourth topic for the podcast today is Sunoco. So again, it's funny, as we're looking through the notes before this, Taylor, we talked a bit about the Dakota Pipeline and Philadelphia-based company Sunoco. And I'm I actually used to work for Sunoco, so this is news to me, but go ahead into this story.
All right, well, the Dakota Access Pipeline made all kinds of news earlier this week when the federal government essentially said that they will reroute. They are not going to go through the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation. They're not going to go through the water supply. All of those things. It became a victory for the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. However, not everyone was on board with this, particularly Sunoco, considering they have $2 billion already invested. And in addition to that, they more or less own this pipeline, and they are very furious. Essentially, they call this complete political action. They're pretty much waiting for the Obama administration to end in January, and they're assuming that things will continue ongoing in the way they want to when Trump is inaugurated. They are not planning on any additional rerouting, and they're very adamant in their views.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising that since they have so much money invested in this particular pipeline and project, we know where their interests lie. The thing I find interesting is that $3.8 billion is the pipeline total, correct?
Yes.
And then they have over $2 billion of it invested. So over half of the money invested from this pipeline is from Sunoco, and this is a Philadelphia-based company.
So this is a lot of money on the line. So I understand it from a business perspective, but my personal view is that it isn't our land. I'll put it frankly, I don't see it as our land. It is a reservation. It's not technically a part of the United States, in my opinion. That's how I see it. So I think you can't infringe on someone else's land. It's not yours. So.
I'm curious to see when Donald Trump gets inaugurated in January, and you'd imagine when he gets inaugurated, he's going to want to see this pipeline go through. They'll brand it as jobs are being created to build this pipeline. I'm curious to see, though, will they change the route of this at all? How will this pipeline be changed? Because again, this was, I guess, a bit of a victory for those protesting at Standing Rock. That that when they announced that they were going to block the completion of this, the federal government stepping in. I think that was viewed as all those protests, those hours, days, weeks of them staying there protesting. It looked like a victory. The only thing is, though, how long term of a victory is this? And question is, when Trump's in there, will he try to play negotiator? Will he try to use his powers and maybe say, we're going to continue to go through with this? Perhaps they may move the route of it. I'm not sure, but
protesters have been there since April.
But at least in the interim, in the time being, we know that they're not going to go forward with it. But again, Donald Trump is going to be inaugurated in just a little over a month. So it's that's right around the corner.
He released one statement about the Dakota Access Pipeline that essentially said he'll look over the environmental impacts, but he does not know what his decision will be.
Did you see who Ivanka Trump met with a couple days ago?
Mr. Al Gore.
Yeah, and you would think that you'd wonder if their meeting was it just for publicity purposes to maybe give the left some hope that they're actually listening, or Al Gore, maybe was his input maybe impactful to Ivanka Trump. I'm sure they had to talk about the Dakota Access Pipeline, although we know Al Gore's main message was about specifically global warming. We know that's been his, I don't want to just say his claim to fame.
His platform for a while.
It's been his platform for, I don't know, maybe close to 2 decades, at least a decade or so, where that's been his crusade where he's been really fighting for global warming awareness. And when he got the chance to meet with Ivanka Trump, something tells me that Dakota Pipeline was talked about as well.
Oh, I'm sure. And you have to put in perspective that Ivanka Trump, yes, she is the daughter of Donald Trump, but you never know. And Ivanka, there's obviously some interaction she has with her father. He obviously values her opinion, so who knows what can happen.
Yeah, and from what we hear in the news is that the Trump kids seem like they're going to have a role in the administration in that they're not going to have any titles, but the thing is, Trump seems to go to his family when consulting about political issues. It seems that he actually wants to get their opinion before going forward with some things, and it seems like her husband, Jared Kushner, has a pretty big sway with the president-elect, and apparently Ivanka, and it's being reported that Ivanka and Jared are actually moving to D.C., so that might even increase their role, possibly in a Trump administration.
That doesn't surprise me the slightest. I mean, it's unfounded that a president will rely so much on his family, but this entire election was unfounded.
We've never seen anything like it, but then again, people can go back to the 90s and look at how involved Hillary Clinton was involved with Bill's administration the first couple of years because she was a much more proactive first lady. Anyway, the last topic of the day, and for the semester, for the district, we talked about Philadelphia and education. That was on our last podcast. We talked about education.
Yes.
I think essentially almost every
topic was about education.
Yeah, I think we'd at least squeak one education story in. And we already squeaked in one with the first story. We opened up the show with the sanctuary college campuses. And now to the little guys, to the little kids. So not to us college students here at Temple.
Not higher education, the beginning of education, quite literally. The city is seeking more kids for the pre-K. This is the pre-K that Mayor Kenney is pushing with the soda tax. That was his main selling point. What's the problem? The only problem is that they're only filling about half. Out of the 2,000 seats, only 1,150 are filled right now. That's concerning since it's only a month away. However, spokespeople have said that they're not entirely worried because families usually wait till the last minute, apparently. Still concerning just because when this was first talked about, many people expected there to be an overflowing waiting list, and that is not the case. However, there are certain things you have to take into account, like, do you want to take your kid out of school mid-year? That is something to take into account. This is a brand new program. Do people really want to gamble with their kids' education? There is certain things you have to think about if you're like the head of a family thinking about your child.
Yeah, Deanna Gamble, who's a spokeswoman for the city's Office of Education, told Philly.com, who wrote the story on the specific issue, that they're not overly concerned about this. Because, again, you talked about them waiting to the last minute. And it was interesting that despite the low enrollment, the city's call center gets 100 calls a day, according to her. Which seems, to me, that seems actually a lot, although they're barely over halfway through the available seats. So there's plenty of room in there. But to me, that they're getting 100 calls a day, I wonder if that will start to translate into seats being filled.
I mean, I would hope so. I'm definitely sure that some people are interested. I mean, this is about children, this is about education. It pretty much sells itself. But I do think that she might be tweaking about the concerning, because they're all asking for volunteers all the time to go to neighborhoods around Philadelphia to ask for enrollment. So they're literally sending people and paying people around Philadelphia to be like, hey, please come to our school. So I think they're a little concerned.
I think with some reason, because let's say when the time comes around and the soda tax is going to be enacted before, January 1st, and here we are almost halfway through December. As soon as the new year hits, first story that day. So I'm looking into my crystal ball right now, Taylor, and I can already see the stories on Philly.com, Philly Voice, Philly Magazine, all the local publications. And something tells me the stories of that day are going to be, one, the soda tax is going to be the first day that we're going to see businesses affected by it, where some people may choose to take their business outside the city if they live close enough to Philly. And Mummers Day, of course, considering the parade.
Yeah.
We're going to see that talked about as well. But those are the two stories, and I think for the Kenney administration, I think he's going to want to see these seats get filled up quickly, because his campaign, again, a great deal of his campaign ran on, look, we're going to get universal pre-K. It's going to be great. And now, since there's so many seats still not filled, I guarantee that they're going to really make a push for this soon.
They're sweating a little bit, I guarantee it. And because it's halfway through December and the latter half is dedicated to the holidays, I don't know a lot of people who are thinking about it. But we will see what happens. I mean, maybe these 1,000 kids will be like prodigies, and maybe it'll be the best thing that ever happened. Or maybe it's a failure. We don't know. I'm speculating.
Only time will tell.
We won't know until not even really next month. We won't know until years later when we find out how the kids perform in other schools. And
the impact of the soda tax as a whole. Because you wonder, although Mayor Kenney has enacted this, and he's very early on in his first term, you'd assume he's going to get a second term as well. I don't foresee a Democratic challenger.
I don't foresee it.
Republican challenger, whoever that may be.
Doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter here in Philly. So, again, he's going to have years to have the soda tax in place. And, again, if this comes to be viewed as a public failure, the next mayor can actually axe they could essentially try to axe the program. So, a lot on the line with the preschool seats being filled. Again, it's still early. We won't be able to judge it just yet. But early numbers not exactly ideal for the Kenney administration. No.
We won't know anything till 2017.
And that's the next time we'll have a show together.
That's true. Oh, it's been so nice.
Yeah, it's a fun show. But as always, though, from John Cole and Taylor Allen.
I'll see you next on WHIP.